gentlemen, so we can go ahead and get started. I don't have to say much other than Ron and Christina. We are so happy to have you guys here today. You have a wealth of information and value to deliver to the agents. So I will let the two of you take it away, and we're really grateful to hear from you today.
Great.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Jill.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jill. Today. So just a little bit. So first introductions. I'm Ron Dugas, and I'll tell you, I am the number two on the Dugas group. The number one and our big rainmaker is Christina. I'll let her introduce herself here in a minute, but I have been licensed in the real estate industry for about 6 years now. However, if you are married to a realtor, you can consider as long as they've been a realtor as yourself as being a realtor as well, because you just can't help it. But my background primarily, I am retired from financial services in the banking over 30 years. And I say 30 years, it was 35 years. But anyway, and in risk management. So I was able to bring a lot of my skills and my background to the team from a financial perspective, and kind of what makes us unique. And we'll talk about that and value propositions and things like that with that. But let me first, before we get started, I'll let Christina introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Christina Dugas, and I've been in real estate for 28 years. I first worked with, I don't know if you know this name or not, but Jill Katzenberg. I was on her team back in 1996. And honestly, she was the one that brought Keller Williams to Cleveland. So I have I have Keller Williams in my blood from way back. She's phenomenal. Jill taught me a lot that I know today that I still use, some of the basic fundamentals of real estate. And I tell her that every time I see her. So she gave me a fabulous foundation that I love to share and pass on to everyone. So thank you for having us today, and we look forward to trying to share as much information as possible.
Great. Thanks, Christina. So I also see some pretty big hitters, on here. So don't know if you're just sort of snarking and coming in and say, hey, what do they have? Or you're just being a good friend, and joining us. So I know it's more the latter, with that. So this is very casual, even though I do have some prepared remarks. So please, if you have any questions or even to add any comments, there's nothing proprietary, there's nothing unique that is just to Christina and I. This is just the way that we handle things. Love to hear from you. Stop us, at any point. It is 30 minutes, as I can sometimes get a little long-winded. So Jill and Christina are going to keep me in check.
Yeah.
With that.
Yeah, we're going to keep it to 30 minutes, but please feel free to reach out to us personally after the class or any time. To be honest with you, we're always open to help people.
Yeah, and that's what we love. I love teaching, I love educating, I love assisting, because as I always say, you're only as good as the weakest link. And I consider that from an industry, perspective, and particularly as we look at Keller Williams and KW Living, which we absolutely love. And one of the things that Christina and I go back, we were the pioneers of 4 partner groups and opening KW Living back in the
2009,
2009 with that. So
okay, let's get started.
Let's go with that. All right. So here we go. Really sort of as we start this, and as we were thinking about, sort of what are critical wins to listing in today's market. There's been so much that has occurred in the market, so many changes, of recent with the settlement. But you know what someone had stated, and really when you kind of put it in perspective, it's not new to real estate. We have gone through it. If you've been in the industry, for a while, it's just a part of your being a part of the activity. But with all that, one guiding principle that really, before we get started, and as you look at this, and we try and follow this, and we constantly reminder, it's not about you, It's not about the market center. It's not about the industry. It's not about, really what's going on. It's all about the seller. They are the one and your primary focus. And whatever it is that you are bringing to that presentation, bringing that to that seller, keep this in mind. It's how do we provide value? How do we really look to the seller and to be able to position their home to get the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time and with the least amount of headaches. And that really is, in a nutshell, your value and your proposition with that. So the next is, you've heard it in Value Squared in all the presentations. There's really nothing new. Jill and I were kind of talking, about this, really what's going on. And it was an outstanding presentation, that Gary and Jay, made here. But we've always needed to, what is your value proposition? And if you don't have one, I highly recommend that you spend some time. And we're going to talk a little bit about what is a value proposition and how to do that. This is probably step one if you do anything, whether you are representing buyers or whether you are representing sellers, because and it's ever so much so critical in today's environment that you're able to sell your proposition. There's lots of competition out there. And whether you are selling Keller Williams, whether you are selling the market center, or whether you are selling you as an individual agent, it's really the combination of all of that. And want to make sure that you have that understanding and as you move forward in creating that. So what is a value proposition? And shouldn't be anything new, to anyone. And I think we probably have a wide varied, of understanding, but just real quickly, and I highlighted in red, on here, that the value proposition really is, it's what do you do? How does it benefit you? And why a client should choose you over your competitor. Those are really critical questions that you need to be able to answer when you are creating your value, proposition. And it is just as fundamental as ABC is, to the alphabet. You really, really need to do that. So a little bit of notation. I did steal this, from the Value Squared. But I thought it was a great slide. And by the way, just as a little bit of marketing, you can get all this in Command. You can download all the slides. You can download the recording, that was done, and you can download all these. Really, really recommend that you do this. Take a look at it and then use it. You can use this information. I was able to copy it, and look what I did down here. I just made it my own. KW Living and the Dugas Group, right there. So it's good to professional and to personalize, things with that. But look at the 3 ways that real estate agents present and deliver their value. And I think this is important and really sort of establish trust. That seller is trusting you to represent them and sell and marketing and selling their property. They don't want just any Joe Schmo, off the street. If they thought that they could do it themselves, they would have done it. Even in a seller's market, you have to establish trust. Why are you and I'll use this word, the chosen one, and no biblical, sits there, but why is it? And you got to establish that trust so that they have confidence, in you, that you can get the job done. You're going to do what you say you're going to do. And it starts from the very first communication that you have with the seller. Provide the fiduciary representation. We've talked about that ad nauseum. Your responsibility, your loyalty, your commitment to this seller. Not any different than what you do with a buyer, but to the seller. Very important. You represent them. You are going to act in their best interest in everything that you do, from the initial consultation all the way through to the closing. So make sure that that is very spelled out and understood. as the fiduciary responsibility. And then what is it that you're going to do in delivering the core services? And if you haven't put together really sort of what those are, you need to do that. Not only be able to speak to those core services, but to be able to highlight them and then demonstrate the core services for that. And then we talk about a win-win and solution, and that is long-term Keller Williams, a comment of win-win, but it's a positive and memorable client experience that will also surprise and delight. And surprise and delight in a good way, hopefully, and not that surprise, in a bad way. So the delight, is very important with
Well,
that.
one thing that I would recommend, and I know I find myself and a lot of people do it, when you're doing your initial consultation for the listing presentation or even a buyer presentation, we have to ask open-ended questions and we have to sit back and listen and let them talk so we can find out what is most important to them. So then when we actually meet with them in person and we go over our value proposition, we can actually include those things that we know already that they told us are most important to them. And sometimes you even have to tweak your proposition a little bit, not change it, but just
Customize
adjust
it.
it a little bit to accommodate the things that are most important to them. And then whatever it is, make sure you keep really good notes and that you follow through. Not only do you say you're going to do it, but actually do it. That's the
Well,
most
there's the
important
trust.
thing. But
There-
listening at the beginning, when you're first starting with a client, listening to them more than talking is the most important thing. That was one of the hardest things that I had to learn at the beginning, because I'd get real nervous and just start talking, nonstop, because I think it's because I was too nervous for the silence. But it's okay to have a little silence and let them really think about and tell you what their needs and wants really are.
Okay, thanks. Excellent thing. So don't panic by this. All these slides are going to be available, for you. But if you don't have a value proposition, these are just questions that you should be asking yourself as you are moving to create a value proposition. With that, I'm not going to read through them. A lot of people already have value propositions, but the three main things that really what you're looking for is, what do we have to offer our clients? So you need to differentiate yourself that, okay, why are we here? What do we have to offer? What are we doing for this client? And then why should clients choose you over a competitor?
Yeah,
So
but it
very,
also
very,
just tells you who to add.
which is also very specific. Do you have a question, Ricky, or is that? Well, they probably didn't realize they were off mute. But anyway, why should they choose you over a competitor? This is a very, very competitive environment. And I'll tell you right now, we don't win every listing, out there. We don't win every buyer, when we do consultations. So we're constantly asking, what could we do better? What could we do differently? What is it that we missed? What didn't we focus on? And sometimes it's not anything that you did or didn't do, but what's that? And so a lot of these things on why choose you over a competitor, if we have new agents that are on the call, you don't need to panic, over this, because if you don't have a long track record, you can use that of the Market Center, and so there are lots of stats, out there as to the number of listings, the value of listings, really our market share as a market center within that. So if you're having a little bit of difficulty because you're just starting off and you're not part of a team, then lean on that of the Market Center, and then you can also broaden it to lean on that of Stats of Keller Williams with that. So that's a way to overcome that particular hurdle, if you will. If you're new in the industry, we were all there. We've been there until you can build your own track record, within that. You're really sort of selling Keller Williams and selling the Market Center with that when you're doing it. And then, why do you want a client's business? And that may kind of seem silly, in a question, but you know, it really kind of shows your passion and your commitment and your dedication. So part of your value proposition, you want to be able to answer, you know, that question as well. So if you don't have one, this is just a little cheat sheet, if you will, and a guide to kind of walk you through, you know, within that. This is our value proposition. And I think it's good, just so what you can see, it's not overly complex. It's not overly long. You don't want it to be. It's almost like an elevator speech, if you will. You know, it's out there, but you have lots of time to further elaborate on that value proposition and what you're doing, but you want something that's very short, succinct, and very, but so, you know, here ours is that the Dugas Group is a boutique full-service residential real estate team serving clients throughout Greater Cleveland. So who are we? A full-service team. Where do we serve? Greater Cleveland. What's our experience? We have over 100 years of combined real estate and financial services, you know, experience. So we're not that old. And that's not just me and Christina, you know, so we do have a team, you know, and other individuals on our team that combine, you know, for that 100 years, but it's a statement. It's like, oh, wow, okay, they know what they're doing. They've been around a while. So this is really good. And it's, you know, that experience uniquely positions our team to provide outstanding personalized service, creating a win-win experience for buyers and sellers. So not too hard, right? But if you go through those questions and you're able to answer them, it will help you create a value proposition as well. Again, very critical, very fundamental, you know, to who you are, what you do, and why you're doing it. Any questions on that?
Not a question, but something I would add, Ron,
Yeah.
is something I really love about yours is that your team provides outstanding personalized service, creating the win-win experience. I think what so many people do is only talk about their numbers and their rankings and what they do, and that's why you should choose somebody, but you close it out with what is in it for them, and I think that's super important.
Thanks, Jill. Yeah, and you're right. We can get caught up in our numbers. We can get caught up in boasting, you know, about that. And there are a lot of agents, you know, that do that, and that can be a turnoff. You know, it really, you remember that verse slide that I said? It's all about the seller. It's all about the client. Don't make it about you. You want, to a certain extent, you need to make it about you so that you can show your value with that. But what we're focusing on is the client, you know, and the seller. So thanks, Jill, for that, for those comments. That's very helpful. Okay, so now the listing process, and I don't want to get into a whole lot. I could have a whole nother class, you know, just on this, but just a couple of things that really you want to make sure, and it's about delivering that value, delivering that trust, having a tried and true process. And Christina can talk about, she is the queen of process. And a lot of people, you know, will tell that, and queen of systems, you know, out there. And to be successful, I do believe that is critical, you know, within that. So everything that we do, there is a system or there is a process. And one, it helps define in what we're doing. And the biggest thing, it's repeatable. You know, it's not something that we're just kind of going off the cuff. And you can still customize, you know, and change, you know, that process as to who you're dealing with, but it's very good to have these processes, have these systems, you know, in place. So, you know, it starts, you know, from the listing lead and the marketing plan to the initial touch. And again, you're now starting to build the trust and the confidence in everything from the very first phone call and what you're doing, whether you're pre-qualifying, you know, the seller, completing, we have an interview, a seller interview form. And again, it's repeatable process with that. You know, we set the appointment with them. We have a pre-list kit that we deliver. And it's probably, I don't know, Christina, what, about 30 or so, you know, pages in this. And it's really just sort of a little bit more information about who we are, what we do, how we do it, and that the seller can take a look at their leisure, you know, and answer, you know, some questions. Tour competition before the appointment. Now, you can either do that in person or online. This is a very critical point as well that I think you need to be aware of, because particularly in the neighborhood, or if it's a close, comparable, that seller's going to ask you about it. And you need to be prepared, again, that trust, that confidence, that experience, and that you have done that and you're going to be able to speak to it. One of the other things is, and we just went on a listing appointment, I would say it probably happens at least 50% of the time. But with all the information that's out there, whether it's Zillow, whether it's Realtor.com, whether it's Redfin, you need to be prepared to address whatever you are presenting, in your comparative market analysis, why that is either different or the same as what they're saying. These consumers, these clients are educated. They're going to go out and get that information. So it's part of, I don't want to call it an objection, but it's a question that you need to be able to answer. And a perfect example with that, we just listed a property in the Village, in Beechwood. It is very unique property, and the comparables really should be just from that area. It's very high homeowners association because they take care of a lot of things. With that, it's going to tend to lessen the value a little bit because you've got these very steep homeowner associations. Well, the client said, well, why are you listing our property at X when Zillow has it, at about $50,000 higher? Well, I had already looked at that. I looked at the comps that Zillow had used. They used comps outside of the Village, and I was able to answer it right away. So I prepared, for that listing, and they said, okay, yeah, that makes sense, and move on. So you're building trust, you're building confidence, you're building you're showing your expertise and your preparedness, with that. So I always try and think of, what is that seller going to ask me? How do I prepare for that? And how would I address, that question? So that initial preparation is very good. Obviously, running the comparative market analysis, I send that in advance. I want them to be able to have it to study the information, not only the actual comparative market analysis, but the link to the properties that you used in that comparative market analysis, because that's going to be critical, particularly if there are different levels of improvements between the property that you were trying to list in price versus what's in the comparables. There. And that's another explanation that you can use as to Zillow or Realtor.com. Those are just algorithms. They have no idea what the level of updates are. They have no idea whether it's on a busy street, in front, or what may be some of the positive attributes or the negative attributes that they're using in that. That's only a starting point. And I think it's good. And there's a real AVM, also out there, but I use it as a check, and then I build on my price from my own information in detail, that I provided. But it's a good check, for me, with that. And then the listing process itself, go on it, tour the home. Christina asked this question, early on, but even when you get in there, ask the client, why do they love their home? What is it that they love about their home? Now you're making it personal to them. And there may be a highlight, on something that they bring to the table that you weren't even aware of, or something that you can think about and even market, and show. But it's a way that you have endeared yourself to them. It's like, wow. And it's a simple question. Why do you love your home? Tell me about it, and most people will talk,
Yeah.
ad nauseam.
And I asked them to actually show me some of the features that they fell in love with the first time they saw the home. And when we're building a relationship and walking around and touring their home, if we don't already have a relationship, or rekindling the relationship we had from the past, I always ask them, I just slip it in, and I always say, so I know you've probably been watching the market. What do you think your home is worth? And I would say about 75, 80% will give me a number. There's a few that say, no, I want to hear what you have to say first. But most of the time I can get them give me a number, which really helps me when we sit down at the table, because I think I'm excited to give them great news. I'm even thinking higher, or, oh, we have some work cut out for us.
So one of the things that I do want to just touch base on, real quickly, and in today's competitive market, and I'll tell you, we even lost listings, before this, because I am a realist. Okay, I'm not going to tell you what you want to know. I'm going to tell you what you need to know, within that. Now, I'm not going to be as direct and bold, with that, but I think you get into a lose-lose situation if you're just trying to win the listing by telling them things that you possibly can't deliver on. And it's price. And every seller thinks that they have the prize right now. They know we're in the seller's market. They know that there's multiple offers, that are coming in, and they know the value of their property has increased. We've lost a couple of listings because, they may have wanted, a list price that I was not comfortable with within it. So one of the things that we did, and this sort of goes back, and again, you have to adjust based on, what market you're in, buyer's market, seller's market, balance market, with that. So one of the things that we started doing is when we ask that question and when we present our price and what they think about, if they say, I want X and that, and rather than lose the listing, then the way to overcome that objection is say, okay, in our professional opinion, we think that it's a little high, but you know what? Let's try it. Let's test the market. But what you need to get an understanding with them is that, look, after 2 weeks, after so many showings, if we're getting that price rejected, we need to agree upon what we're going to reduce the price to. And in fact, we'll get a price reduction signed before we go on the market, and
We get it signed
with
when we
that.
get the listing agreement signed.
Yeah, because sellers have selective memory and they'll forget, as to that. So that's one way that we've sort of, now, if it's ridiculous, we're going to walk away because it's not worth, it's a frustration, for the seller, frustrating for us. And sometimes you just can't help everyone, out there, but it is
And
a
That's a
way.
great
sometimes you can
idea,
get-
having that document signed before you go live, because I've had that conversation before and say,
Mhm.
okay, 2 weeks, we don't get any offers. Let's reduce to this amount. And like you said, they forget that you had that conversation. So having that signed and having that ready to go that's a great idea.
Yeah, it works. Now they still may refuse it, when you say that, because they can't say, all right, I'm doing this regardless. You signed, you agreed, but at least it's a memory for them, and can go back and say, all right, yeah, we did have this discussion, we did agree upon that, and then you can execute the price change with that. So, and I think this is very important. Christina and I do this all the time. Grab someone in the office, overcoming those objections and role playing, within that. There's always going to be some objection, out there, whether it's the house itself, whether it's the location of the property, whether it's the price, whether it's the level of improvements, that they have done. So talk about that. Don't be afraid of it. The worst thing you can do is bury it. Get it out in the open, talk about it. They fell in love, with the property as is. There will be someone else that will, but don't bury it. Don't try and overlook it because it will become a problem,
Yeah,
for
and
you
I mean, with
later
every
on.
objection, even your commission, talking about your commission with the seller, whatever, if you can role play those with either another realtor or a family member that is tough and is going to hold you accountable and really pin you to the wall on certain things, that's the best to prepare. You really need to practice your scripts over and over and over again so that it comes out smooth and you know what you're talking about and you are ready to answer any question that they come up with so that you're not stumped.
And you know what? It's okay if you are. Don't make something up. Tell them that's a very good question. Let me do a little bit of research and I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
So clearly. So, wow, we've got 14 seconds. And I apologize that we didn't just kind of wanted to get that information. Hopefully this was helpful, for you guys.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions?
You can unmute or put them in the chat if you do. This was really great, you guys, and something that I know they talk about this in Value Squared. And thank you for bringing up Value Squared. If you haven't watched it,
Mhm.
please watch the recording. It's fantastic. But I'm so glad you guys reviewed it because they talk a lot about relationships. And something I noticed in the very beginning, as well as your value proposition, when you were talking, maybe it's slide page 5, but an aha moment I had is sometimes it is less about, oh, that number 3, deliver the core experiences. Sometimes people stress so much about what their marketing and their listing presentation is, where if you focus more on a needs analysis, and Christina, when you were discussing about, sometimes you might talk more about different value than others, just customizing it to who they are. All of that goes back to relationship and understanding what they want and need. And I think you guys do this beautifully.
Thank you. We always say
Thanks.
we're not transactional realtors, we're relationship realtors.
Yes.
And we're your
Yeah.
realtor. We really, really strive to be their realtor for life.
Yeah.
All of our business is referrals.
So whether.
But I've been doing it long enough that I can just just work referrals, thank God.
Yes, you're lucky. I did put your guys' email addresses in the chat, and a couple people have said thank you for that. So we really
Good.
appreciate your time and the value you delivered today.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, everyone. Yes, we really
Yes.
appreciate it. All right.
Have a great day.
Everybody
Thanks,
have a
everyone.
great day. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.